The world is on edge tonight. Across continents, people are glued to their screens, anxiously awaiting updates as a crisis unfolds that could reshape the global order. In a move that has stunned the international community, a Russian drone loaded with explosives and bearing unmistakable military insignia has violated NATO airspace. The drone struck a logistics depot in Lithuania, a direct and deliberate attack on a NATO member state, shattering the illusion of safety that has long surrounded the alliance's borders. The explosion shattered the morning calm, sending shockwaves not just through Lithuania, but across Europe and far beyond. Sirens wailed as emergency crews rushed to the scene, and ordinary citizens found themselves at the epicenter of a geopolitical earthquake. This is no longer a regional conflict. It's a direct challenge to NATO's resolve and the security architecture that has kept the peace in Europe for generations. For the first time in its history, the alliance faces a Russian attack on its territory, testing the core promise of Article 5. An attack on one is an attack on all. The world watches as the alliance's credibility hangs in the balance. Leaders from Washington to Warsaw are scrambling, holding emergency meetings that stretch late into the night. Phones ring in capitals across the globe as diplomats and military officials weigh their options. The question on everyone's mind: how will NATO respond? The specter of a wider war looms as military forces are placed on high alert and the world braces for what could come next. The target was a facility processing non-lethal aid for Ukraine, a message from Moscow, delivered with deadly precision. The attack was not just on a building, but on the very idea of international support and solidarity. This attack is a reckless escalation, putting millions at risk and pushing the world closer to catastrophe. Families huddle in shelters, uncertain of what tomorrow will bring, as the threat of further violence hangs over the region. The rules that have governed Europe for decades are being torn apart. Old fears return, and the specter of a divided continent looms once again, echoing the darkest days of the Cold War. The world is watching. Will NATO show unity or fracture under pressure? Citizens rally in support, while leaders face the gravest test of their generation. The decisions made now will shape the century. The choices before us are stark, and the consequences will echo for generations to come. The peace Europe has enjoyed for decades now hangs by a thread. Streets that were once filled with laughter and life are now shadowed by uncertainty and fear. The world holds its breath, hoping for wisdom over warfare. In cities across the globe, people gather in vigils, praying that leaders will choose dialogue over destruction. The line has been crossed, and history is being written in real time. The next chapter depends on the choices made in these critical hours, choices that will define the future of peace, security, and humanity itself. The White House responded immediately, moving with a sense of urgency rarely seen in recent years. As news of the attack broke, lights blazed through the night at 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue, signaling that the administration was mobilizing all resources at its disposal. President Trump, resolute and unwavering, addressed the nation and the world. He condemned the attack as an unprovoked act of war, declaring, "Putin has crossed a red line. He will be held accountable." His words echoed through the press room, leaving no doubt about America's stance. America stands shoulder to shoulder with Lithuania. There will be no backing down, no wavering in our support. Across the country and in capitals around the world, the message was clear. The United States would not abandon its allies in their hour of need. In a sweeping move, Trump announced the total economic isolation of Russia, an immediate ban on all Russian imports, and the imposition of crippling tariffs on any nation that continued to trade with Moscow. The administration coordinated with allies to ensure these measures would bite hard and fast. "If you trade with Russia, you will not trade with the United States," he warned, his tone leaving no room for misinterpretation. The world's largest economy was drawing a line in the sand, and the consequences for crossing it would be severe. The goal was clear: to cripple Russia's war machine, to cut off the resources fueling its aggression, and to send a message that such actions would come at an unbearable cost. Simultaneously, U.S. forces were mobilized. F-35 fighter jets roared into Baltic airbases, while Patriot missile systems and additional troops were rapidly deployed to Lithuania and neighboring allies. This was not just a symbolic gesture, but a tangible show of force designed to deter any further aggression. Trump stood before NATO leaders and the world, emphasizing, "Our commitment to Article 5 is ironclad. We seek peace, but we will achieve it through strength." The alliance was united, its resolve tested but unbroken. This swift, uncompromising response was meant to send a clear message to Moscow. Attacks on NATO allies will have devastating consequences. The world watched as NATO convened urgent meetings, military planners worked around the clock, and tension gripped the Russian capital. The world now waits. Will this display of American resolve and Allied unity pull Russia back from the brink? or will it escalate the crisis to new and dangerous heights? Every move is being scrutinized, every word analyzed for its potential impact. The stakes could not be higher. For millions, the outcome of these tense hours will shape the future of their countries and perhaps the world itself. NATO's unity and credibility are on the line. The alliance's response will determine whether its promises are more than words, whether collective defense truly means all for one and one for all. Across Europe, cities brace for uncertainty. Soldiers stand guard at borders, governments heighten security, and citizens wonder what tomorrow will bring. The next moves will define the future of European security for years to come. The world watches, hoping for deterrence, not disaster. The clock is ticking and history is being written in real time. Putin's attack on Lithuania is not a show of strength, it's a sign of desperation. The world is witnessing a leader who, faced with mounting failures, is lashing out in unpredictable ways. This move is not calculated dominance, but a reckless gamble by a regime running out of options. His war in Ukraine has stalled. What was once promised as a swift and decisive campaign has devolved into a quagmire, with Russian forces unable to achieve their objectives. Russian forces are bogged down, demoralized, and losing ground to Ukrainian counteroffensives. The morale among troops is at an all-time low, with many soldiers questioning the purpose of their mission as they face fierce Ukrainian resistance. The Kremlin's plan to conquer Kyiv in days has become a grinding, unwinnable war. The streets of Kyiv, once the target of a lightning assault, now symbolize the resilience and determination of a nation refusing to surrender. Russia is running low on equipment and trained soldiers, forced to use outdated tanks and poorly equipped conscripts. The once feared Russian military machine is showing its age and its limits, struggling to replenish its ranks and maintain its arsenal. The drone strike on Lithuania is a desperate attempt to widen the conflict and intimidate the West. By targeting a NATO member, Putin hopes to sow fear and division among Western allies, but the effect has been the opposite. Instead, it has united NATO and brought the alliance to Russia's doorstep. The response has been swift and resolute, with NATO forces mobilizing and member states reaffirming their commitment to collective defense. Finland and Sweden have joined NATO, and Western support for Ukraine is stronger than ever. The alliance has grown, both in numbers and in resolve, sending a clear message that aggression will not go unanswered. Putin's actions have isolated Russia, turning it into a pariah state. Once a key player on the world stage, Russia now finds itself shunned by former partners and surrounded by growing international condemnation. He hopes NATO will blink, but he may have miscalculated. The alliance, instead of fracturing, has found new purpose and unity in the face of Russian aggression. By attacking a NATO member, he's triggered the very scenario the alliance was built to prevent. The world is now watching as NATO prepares to respond, determined to uphold the principles of collective security. His gamble may have sealed his fate and pushed the world toward a conflict he cannot win. The risks are higher than ever, and the consequences of miscalculation could be catastrophic for Russia and the world. The stakes are now global. Every major power is on alert, and diplomatic channels are buzzing as leaders scramble to prevent escalation. The world stands at a crossroads. The decisions made in the coming days will shape the future of Europe, and perhaps the fate of the world itself. Amid the geopolitics, the human cost is staggering. For years, Ukrainians have endured relentless attacks, missiles striking homes, schools, and hospitals. These are not accidents, they are deliberate war crimes. Every day brings new stories of loss, families shattered, children traumatized, cities reduced to rubble. The psychological toll is immense, especially on children who know only war. Now, the terror that haunted Ukraine has reached NATO's doorstep. The drone strike in Lithuania is a warning, no one is safe. Putin's strategy is intimidation, spreading fear across Europe to pressure governments into abandoning Ukraine. This is a tactic seen before in Chechnya and Syria, targeting civilians to break societies. Yet Ukrainians refuse to be broken. Their resilience is a testament to their courage. The world must decide, stand by, or confront this brutality as it threatens NATO itself. The stakes are no longer just Ukrainian, they are European. The cost of inaction grows with every attack. The world must choose defend freedom, or let fear dictate the future. NATO faces its most critical test in decades. The Russian strike on Lithuania is a direct challenge to the alliance's credibility. For years, deterrence kept the peace. Now, that deterrence is on trial. The debate is fierce. Some demand a robust military response, others urge caution to avoid a wider war. Hawks call for no-fly zones or retaliatory strikes, doves warn of nuclear escalation. The challenge: punish Russia and restore deterrence without triggering World War III. The decision will define NATO's future and the security of Europe. The world is watching. Will NATO act or falter? The alliance stands at a historic crossroads. To understand Russia's risk, look to Putin's vision. He sees Ukraine, Lithuania, and the Baltics not as sovereign nations, but as lost parts of a Russian empire. This imperial nostalgia drives his aggression. The success of neighboring democracies threatens his rule, showing Russians a better future is possible. The Kremlin's propaganda paints the West as a threat, justifying invasions as defense of Russia's sphere of influence. Putin's ambitions don't end with Ukraine. They threaten all of Eastern Europe. He's challenging the very principles of sovereignty and self-determination. This is a clash between a world of rules and a vision of empire. The danger is not just regional, it's global. The world must confront this threat to stability. While Putin dreams of empire, ordinary Russians suffer. Outside Moscow's wealth, most face poverty, corruption, and crumbling infrastructure. The war has worsened their plight. Resources diverted, sanctions biting, inflation soaring. Tens of thousands of Russian men have died at the front, sacrificed for Putin's ambitions. Meanwhile, former Soviet republics that embraced democracy have thrived, a silent rebuke to Putin's rule. He fears the spread of freedom more than NATO tanks. The war is a distraction from his domestic failures, a tool to maintain power. The suffering of his people is the price of his grip on the Kremlin. Russia's decline is the true legacy of this conflict. The world stands at a precipice. The attack on Lithuania has pushed the crisis to a new level. NATO leaders face an agonizing choice: respond forcefully and risk escalation, or show restraint and risk further attacks. The attack has united the West, shattering illusions about Putin's intentions. Russia's desperation is clear, relying on pariah states for support, its military stretched thin. This is a regime lashing out as it loses ground. The question, does NATO act now to re-establish the red line or risk another more devastating attack? The world holds its breath, waiting for a decision that will shape history. What if the next drone targets a school in Warsaw or a hospital in Tallinn? The stakes are existential. The future of Europe and the world hangs in the balance. The answer will define a generation.